According to the Law School Admission Council, applications to law school jumped about 36% in 2 years. And that larger pool of applications is about to land in every application portal this September. And a lot of people who submit one this fall will send in a file that was already bound to lose before a human even read a word of it, because these admissions offices run on a rolling admissions basis, meaning they give more weight to whichever file goes complete first, not necessarily which file is best. So they'll open the portal, they'll sit on submissions for weeks until they can staff up the admissions committee, and there are two dates that matter here. There's also a deadline that nobody prints, and I'll tell you exactly which date it is later. And there's also a window in the spring where you can still get real scholarship money on an offer you've already got. And you should know that there's also a transcript that can hold up your entire application, maybe in limbo for a month or two. And that runs right into the window where scholarship money gets spent. Now, I've been teaching the LSAT since 2005, and what costs people the most is never what they worry the most about. And the whole thing, September to the following August, runs on one simple principle. Early September, applications open. They open their portals in the first week or two, then most of them sit on the pile for a few weeks while the committee gets staffed up and calibrated. And your file isn't a file until LSAC says it is, because your transcripts have to arrive from every institution you ever took a credit at, including that one summer community college class. They'll come by mail or through a registrar's portal on their schedule. I've seen a single 3-credit transcript from a school somebody attended for 6 weeks holds an entire application in limbo through October. And so you want to start those transcript requests before you even start working on your essays. It's the least interesting part of the process, but it's the one that's most likely to cost you an entire month. Recommenders also can cost you time because you're on their calendar, not yours. And so you want to ask early, ask now if you haven't already, give them your resume and a quick reminder, maybe just one paragraph about what you did in their class, then set a soft deadline date for it, then follow up. It's not rude. You also want to get to work on your application essays sooner rather than later. They're not as important as you've been told they are, but they're also not nothing. Schools report two numbers to the ABA every year, LSAT median and GPA median. Those get published and compared. The essays don't get quantified. They're more like tiebreakers, but you've got to have cleared the numbers already. You want to give the committee a reason to say yes to you, not someone else, even if your numbers are slightly below the medians. And so write it well, but don't treat it like the thing that's going to rescue your score. It's not going to. And the 9 months that you spend on your drafts are months you aren't studying for the LSAT. That's a whole lot more important. Then in October, the first decisions start to go out, and they go to a very specific kind of applicant. The early acceptances cluster among those whose numbers are clearly above a school's medians. It's triage. They clear the early yeses first, so they can spend November through March on the hard middle. If you're at or under a school's numbers, silence in the fall doesn't mean anything at all about your outcome. The retake decision, you should decide sooner though. If you took the LSAT in June or August and the score wasn't what you wanted it to be, the best move is to register for the next LSAT immediately and apply right after that. According to LSAC's data, those who retake the LSAT score 2 to 3 points higher on average, and the majority of test takers have already taken it before. So you're not doing anything unusual or surprising here. What kills you is waiting for the score, then deciding to retake, retaking it in, say, November, and then applying in December, January, or February. If you apply after the winter, there's less scholarship money available. It's also harder to get in because scholarship budgets are finite. They're limited. That money gets committed as the cycle goes forward. Every school will tell you that decisions in money are made on a rolling basis, and that's true. And so the practical translation of that is the same profile is going to get more money in November than in February. If you're applying by the deadline and applying versus in time for the money, those are two different things. They don't publish scholarship deadlines because those are soft. They're not concrete, but they matter as well. Then in December, every ABA law school publishes their new numbers, their LSAT medians and their GPA medians. And at that point, you want to rebuild your school list if you haven't applied already. Those numbers are the medians of the class that just started a few months prior, which means that the list you built in August was based on last year's data. It's now changed. Across every ABA law school, the median LSAT was a 154 in 2015. In 2025, it's a 159. 22 law schools now report a median of 170 or higher. In 2015, only 5 did. Then when it comes to deadlines, the actual deadlines run from February to June, depending on the school. Almost none of that matters because by December, the early pile has been processed, a huge chunk of the class is now spoken for, and the scholarship budget has been largely depleted. You want your applications complete everywhere by New Year's, and then the printed deadlines won't matter. Then in January, those who take the January LSAT are competing over a limited number of seats. I mentioned earlier, applications have surged. LSAC's June 2026 volume summary had applications up 11.2% year over year and up 36.4% over 2 years, with more than 75,000 people applying to at least one law school against an average of about 59,000 in the 4 years prior. Nationally, that produced 517,000 applications, 137,000 offers, and 42,000 first-year seats. So about 1 application in 4 turns into an offer. Now, an LSAT score that you earn in January or February is still usable. It's not too late for the cycle, but it's going to cost you scholarship money. And schools will absolutely accept a late score, and plenty of people get in off of one. But what they generally won't do is go back and reopen a scholarship decision they made back in November based on a different set of numbers. And so with a late score, you could get in, but you'll get a much smaller offer than if you had taken it in the fall, and you'll never find out what even happened to you. You won't know the alternative. Then in February, some schools, a limited number, offer interviews by invitation. Others will let anybody sign up. Some do the automated video thing. And a lot of these are actually recruiting rather than screening. In other words, the school is already leaning yes, but they want to determine whether you would actually enroll. This is what's called yield protection, the number of students they accept who accept their offer of acceptance. They care about yield because it's part of what determines the rankings, and so you want to show up prepared and read it as an indication of real interest on the part of the school. Then in February and March, more offers arrive from those who took the LSAT in the winter, and that's the window where you've got negotiating power. Once you hold a written offer from School A, you've got something School B has to price against. And that window closes the moment that you place your seat deposit. Almost nobody does this, though, because it might feel presumptuous to email a school about money 3 days after they accepted you. But schools do negotiate scholarships. The scholarship number is just a budget line item. A decision to admit you is giving you a seat and also helping their medians, ideally. It's a lot easier for them to give you money than it is for them to adjust their medians, and so you've got the power here. Just email politely, specifically requesting scholarship reconsideration. That's the formal term for this. And you're naming a competing offer. It might take you 20 minutes to put it together, and that's going to be the highest paid 20 minutes of your entire career, most likely. The worst possible outcome is that the number just doesn't change. The email just is a couple paragraphs, takes maybe 30 minutes, like I said. You thank them. You say simply their school's where you want to go. You attach or quote the competing award with the school's name and the dollar figure on it, and you ask whether there is any room to revisit that offer. You don't give them a sob story. You don't make an ultimatum, definitely not. You don't tell them what you're worth. All you're doing is giving the person with a budget a written reason to spend some of that money on you rather than on somebody else with the same numbers. That's it. And most applicants never do this because it feels like asking for a favor, but it's not. It's actually standard operating procedure of the half of the applicant pool that pays less than you do. Now, 7% of law students get a full ride or better. 20.7% pay sticker, full tuition. Which means that roughly 73% of students get some form of scholarship below a full ride, but still maybe significant. Out of 116,000 students in the 2025 filings, 4.2% got full tuition, 2.7% got more than full tuition, 24,000 got nothing at all, 41% got less than half. And so the outcome of the full ride happens to only 1 in 14 students, and the outcome that nobody plans for happens to 1 in 5. So take that information for what it's worth. Know that you can get some discount on your tuition, most likely. Now, April is when you typically have the seat deposit deadlines, and those deposits are usually non-refundable. And if you hold multiple deposits past the school stated policy, that could get you an offer pulled, so be careful about that. Take some time to do your due diligence and think through where you really want to go. Now, if you've been waitlisted, you're dealing with that in April, May, for example. Waitlist movement is real. Schools do take applicants off the waitlist all the time. It's a pretty mechanical process. Basically, what happens is seats will free up when an admitted student deposits somewhere else, and that cascades downward the chain. And so the question isn't whether the school likes you, it's whether anybody above you left the line. So what you want to do if you're waitlisted is send a letter of continued interest with some concrete, actual new information. You don't want to just restate your enthusiasm, give them something more substantive than that. They get dozens of emails like that a week. New information would be something that did not exist in your file in November, like you got a higher LSAT score after retaking, or you got your final semester GPA, or you got a promotion or a new job, or you completed a project with your name attached to it. And the one sentence that matters more than anything else is if you can say honestly, this school is your first choice and you will attend if you are admitted. Say exactly that in those words, rewind this if you need to, because a wait list is a yield problem. And a school pulling applicants off the wait list is trying to fill their seats with people who they think will actually show up. And you can get off the wait list even over the summer. It's called summer melt, and it's real. What happens is people pull out of law school in June and July because of jobs or family, or they got cold feet, or they came into money from a rich uncle who passed away and they're not going to become lawyers after all. All sorts of things happen. Bottom line, seats open up. And that's why law schools might call you in August, a day before classes start. What does not happen in August, though, is a fresh scholarship offer because that budget was already spent months ago. So getting off the waitlist in the summer is typically a full sticker admit, which is the scenario that those new federal loan rules make brutal. Then in August, you start law school. If you have a conditional scholarship, the clock starts now. In the 2025 filings, 7,408 students entered law school on conditional awards across 61 schools, and 2,043 of them had those awards reduced or eliminated, roughly 1 in 4. And the federal borrowing rules changed. The Grad Plus loans are gone as of July 1st, 2026. Law students are now capped at $50,000 a year and $200,000 in a lifetime of federal loans, while median private tuition sits at $60,322 a year before you've paid rent. So that's the cycle, September to September of the following year. The pattern is pretty boring. Almost every expensive mistake here is a timing one. People think they got rejected or they weren't impressive enough, but usually they were just too late. Now, I don't know the answer to this, but basically you had this federal loan change back in July, coming in the same cycle where applications just jumped 36.4% in 2 years. So those two forces point in opposite directions. Either the caps price a chunk of people out and next fall's pile of applications shrinks, which would make the coming cycle the easiest in 5 years for anybody who applies anyway, or you have the opposite outcome, where the surge holds, schools quietly shift more money to the top of the applicant pool to protect their medians, and everybody in the middle pays more than they've ever paid. I genuinely can't tell you what's going to happen in the future. I don't think anybody knows yet. But what I do know is that both of those futures reward the same person. The one with the numbers high enough that the school wants them badly enough to pay for them. That part doesn't change under either scenario. And if you want my help getting the highest LSAT score possible, getting into better law schools, getting more scholarship money, I'm happy to help you out. That's exactly what we do. I'm offering a free LSAT tutoring lesson for everybody watching this now or later. You can book that free tutoring lesson with me at unpluggedprep.com/start. The link is below the video on YouTube, pinned in the chat on YouTube, in my bio on TikTok and IG. I've also put together a free LSAT cheat sheet to help you jumpstart your LSAT prep. It's a quick reference PDF covering everything logical reasoning and reading comprehension. You can grab that free cheat sheet at unpluggedprep.com/cheat sheet. Again, links below the video, pinned in the chat, in my bio as well. Happy to help you out. .9% is the share of last year's law graduates who landed a full-time, long-term job requiring or preferring a law degree at the schools reporting a median LSAT of 170 or higher. But if you drop 20 points down the scale, that same number is only 53.1%. So you could get the same law degree, do the same 3 years, take on the same debt, frequently more debt, and roughly have only half the odds of a job at the end of it. Now, I'm not saying that top law schools teach better. They don't necessarily do that. This is just proof of which students a school needs to protect the number it publishes, and that number is all based on a rankings formula, not how prepared you'll be for, say, working in a courtroom. If you are above a law school's median, you are the applicant they are going to compete to keep because your score is what gets them ranked and recruited on. Below it, you're just filling a seat. And that same math shows up in who transfers out of the top of the market and who never gets a shot at it. Now, there is a single 5-point stretch on this scale worth more money than any other 5 points on the test, and I'll tell you exactly what it is. And there's a score, like a 175, that still won't buy you the one thing that actually decides your first job. Now, I pulled the 2025 ABA filings for every accredited law school in the country, and I sorted them by their reported median LSAT. And what falls out is a price list. So I'm going to walk you through it. Now, if you have a 145 LSAT, you're not choosing a law school, you're choosing a lender. There are 8 law schools in the filings reporting a median LSAT below 150. Across those schools, 53.1% of 2025 graduates got a full-time long-term job that required or preferred a JD. The typical school in that group gave a full tuition scholarship or better to 1.7% of its students. So the offer on the table is roughly full price for a roughly even chance at a legal job, financed with debt that doesn't care how it turns out. Now, a 150 used to put you in the middle of the market. Now it puts you under 188 schools out of 196. In 2015, 45 law schools reported a median below 150. In 2025, only 8 of them do. So the floor came up almost 40 schools worth in just a decade, and the applicant who scored what their cousin scored in 2014 is landing in a totally different market with the same number. In the 150 to 154 band, you get admitted and you pay for it. The median acceptance rate at those schools is 52.6%, so more than half the applications get a yes. And the typical school there gives a full ride or better to 2.5% of its class. Now, a high acceptance rate and a low money offer is the entire business model. These schools need to fill the seats, and they don't have to pay for you. Now, the 5 points between a 150 and 155 are worth 8 points of employment. At schools with medians in the 150 to 154 range, 77.3% of graduates got full-time, long-term, JD required or JD advantage work. At 155 to 159, that is 85.1%. That is what 5 points on the LSAT buys you at the bottom of the scale, and it's the widest jump per point anywhere on the curve. Now, today, 147 law schools now report a median of 155 or better. In 2015, only 95 of them did. So 52 more schools crossed that line in the past 10 years. A 155 used to sit at or above the median at more than half the schools in the country. It doesn't anymore. And nothing about the applicant changed. It's the pool that changed. More than 75,000 people applied to at least one law school this cycle, against an average of about 59,000 in the 4 years prior. So being 155 to 159, that makes you essentially a coin flip, and they're not going to give you money for that. Now, the median acceptance rate in that band is 41.4%. That means a school is genuinely making a decision about you. But money only goes to the applicants the school is afraid of losing. And nobody's afraid of losing an applicant who sits right at their median already. They want to raise their medians. Now, if you make it into the 160 plus range, that's where you start getting money. 91 law schools now have a median of 160 or higher, up from 49 in 2015. And a 160 puts you around the 71st percent of test takers. Now, the shift at this number is because you become the applicant that a school 5 points below you wants to buy. And that's the first point on the scale where the scholarship conversation is about you rather than the budget. Let's say a school has a 158 median and you've got a 163, you're pulling them up. That gets them ranked. It gets them recruited against. They're going to pay for that. If you're below the median, they won't, because you cost them. If you're above the median, you help them. Now, if you can make it into the 160 to 164 band, employment rates finally clear 90%. 90.1% of graduates from those schools got full-time long-term legal work. The median acceptance rate is 29.9%. Now, 48 schools sit at a median of 165 or higher, more than double the 21 that did back in 2015. Now, 165 puts you in the 85th percentile. Below that number, you're asking the schools to take a chance. If you're at that number, you're above the median at 3/4 of law schools in the country. And those schools have a very concrete reason to want you, because your number pulls their published median up, and that's what they get ranked on. Now, if you can get 165 plus, that's where you get the most money. Across every band from below 150 up through 169, the typical school gives you a full ride or better only to 1.7% or 4.3% of the class within that range. At schools with medians of 170 or above, that number is 6.6%, the highest anywhere. Employment in the 165 to 169 band is 94.4%, and at 170 plus schools, it's 96.9%. So those 5 points move you from a good outcome to a nearly guaranteed one at the exact place on the curve where the fewest people are willing to keep grinding. Now, a 170 puts you around the 94th percentile. 22 schools now report a median of 170 or higher. In 2015, only 5 did. And the median acceptance rate at those 22 schools is 12.6%, which means crossing 170 even doesn't make elite schools easy. It just makes you eligible for the fight to get in. It puts you in the running. But what it definitely does is make every school with medians in the 160s want you, and those schools are writing checks if your numbers are high enough. Now, the median tuition at a private law school is $60,322 a year, and so a half tuition scholarship is worth over $90,000 over 3 years. And as of July 1st, the Grad Plus loans are gone, and law students are capped at $50,000 a year and $200,000 in a lifetime of federal borrowing against tuition that exceeds the federal annual cap before rent. So for most people, scholarship money is now the plan for financing tuition, and it gets awarded by a committee looking at 2 numbers, your LSAT score and your GPA. And of course, your GPA is probably pretty fixed at this point in time, but your LSAT score is the one number you can still change. And so if you're looking for support, getting a higher LSAT score, getting into better schools, getting more scholarship money, I'm happy to help you out. I'm offering free LSAT tutoring for everybody watching this now or later. You can book that free tutoring lesson with me at unpluggedprep.com/start. The link is below the video on YouTube, pinned in the chat on YouTube, in my bio on TikTok and IG. I've also put together a free LSAT cheat sheet to help you jumpstart your LSAT prep. It's a quick reference PDF on everything logical reasoning and reading comp. You can grab that free cheat sheet at unpluggedprep.com/cheat sheet. In the meantime, all the best. Take care. Thanks for joining.